Unaware his wife was about to be recognized as a billionaire's lost daughter, husband abandoned her to eat leftovers and went on a road trip with his lover. What she did next ruined them completely. He didn't just leave. He stood in the doorway of a small, quiet home, rolled his suitcase over the welcome mat, and told his wife she was holding him back, while she stood there with a cracked plate of cold leftovers in her hands. That evening, Grace Harrison tried to smile through the shaking in her chest as she asked, "Where are you going?" Ethan, her husband, didn't even meet her eyes. "Somewhere better," he said. Outside, a car horn sounded, followed by a woman's laugh, bright, easy, familiar. He walked out, climbed into the car with his lover, and drove off for a road trip he'd been planning behind her back. Inside, Grace sat alone at the small kitchen table and ate the meal he refused to touch. She thought this was the worst thing that could happen to her, being left for another woman, being treated like scraps. She had no idea the world outside their little house was already shifting in her favor. Because while Ethan was speeding down the highway with music blasting and his mistress by his side, Grace's phone buzzed on the table with an unknown number. A calm voice left a message she wouldn't listen to until later that day. "This is the Family Heritage Foundation. We need to speak to you urgently about a DNA match connected to your adoption." He thought he'd left a powerless, unwanted wife behind. He had no idea she was hours away from being recognized as the lost daughter of one of the richest families in the country. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's like letting Grace's voice be ignored all over again. When you subscribe, you stand with every person who was underestimated and still rose. Please subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Grace Harrison, 27 years old, quiet, gentle, and exhausted from a life she never chose, is tearing through her bedroom closet as if searching for something she has lost. Her movements are sharp, almost frantic. Clothes fall from hangers, drawers slam shut, and for a moment it looks like she might collapse under the weight of something she cannot name. Grace always lived with a feeling she couldn't explain, like something important was missing from her life. Only then does the intensity slow into a softer rhythm. Grace kneels on the floor, breathing unsteadily. She pulls out an old wooden keepsake box, the only object her adoptive mother insisted she keep close before she passed. The wood is scratched, the corners worn, but Grace handles it with reverence, like it contains the last thread tying her life together. Inside the box are 3 items: a tiny baby bracelet with no name, an official adoption letter signed by her adoptive parents, and a faded photograph of a woman holding a toddler, Grace herself. Grace lifts the bracelet first. It is so small it fits between her fingertips. She turns it slowly, studying the smooth metal where a name should have been etched. But it is blank. It has always been blank. When Grace was a baby, she wasn't given a name by her birth family. That's what her adoptive parents told her. They said she was found after a terrible disaster. No relatives, no records, no way to trace where she came from. Grace believed them because she had nothing else. She reaches for the adoption letter next. The paper's old, creased so many times that the edges have thinned. As she runs her thumb over the signature of her adoptive father, the scene briefly flickers into a flashback. Grace at 5 years old, sitting on his lap, asking why she didn't look like them. He smiled nervously, repeating the same practiced line. "We found you in a crowded emergency center, sweetheart. You were alone. We saved you." The memory fades, leaving behind a strange heaviness. Now Grace picks up the old photo, the one she has spent her whole life trying to understand. A woman, her adoptive mother, younger, beautiful, eyes full of worry, is holding a toddler whose back is turned toward the camera. The toddler is Grace. She can tell by the bracelet around the child's wrist. But the woman's expression is what confuses her most. She looks uncomfortable, not motherly, almost guilty. Grace frowns. She has stared at this picture 1,000 times, but today something feels different. She studies her adoptive mother's eyes, wide, tense, almost afraid. And for the first time, Grace wonders if the story she was told growing up was ever the whole truth. A nurse in white rushing through a chaotic hallway, a toddler being handed off quickly, no parents in sight, papers falling, voices shouting, a child crying. Then the flash ends as fast as it came, leaving Grace trembling slightly as if some buried memory brushed against her. She always felt like a missing puzzle piece, but she never knew why. Grace places the items back into the box, but her hands shake. Her life has always been simple. Working part-time, caring for the house, doing her best to keep Ethan, her husband, happy. But underneath all of it, there has always been that feeling that she is living someone else's life, like hers was taken from her before she even learned to speak. A soft knock interrupts her thoughts. The bedroom door opens a few inches as Ethan Harrison, her husband, 31, restless, distant, and always looking for something outside his marriage, peeks inside. He is dressed sharply, more dressed than necessary for a normal day. He glances at the mess on the floor with mild irritation. He doesn't ask what she's doing. He doesn't ask if she's okay. He simply says, "You're making noise. I'm on a call." Then he closes the door again, not gently, reminding the audience who he is and the role he plays in her life. A husband who treats her presence like an inconvenience. Grace sighs deeply. Her eyes drift back to the photo as if seeking answers she has been denied for decades. Just then, her phone buzzes on the nightstand. She glances at the screen. Unknown number. Her brows knit. She hesitates. Grace rarely gets calls and never from strangers. She lets it ring, but a few seconds after the call ends, it buzzes again. Same number, same insistence, same strange tug of fate. In her entire life, no one ever searched for her until now. The phone continues to vibrate on the nightstand, the screen glowing in the dim room as Grace stares at it, unsure, afraid, and completely unaware that everything she believes about her life is about to break open. And behind that call waited the truth she was never meant to forget. Grace stands at the kitchen counter, still shaken from the repeated unknown calls earlier. Her hands tremble as she cuts vegetables for dinner. The knife nearly slips. She steadies herself against the counter, breathing hard, trying to calm the sudden panic that has been growing inside her since she saw that number. Before Grace ever learned where she came from, she learned what it felt like to give everything and receive nothing in return. The intensity softens as the scene unveils its rhythm. Grace wipes her hands on a towel and checks the time. She has just come home from her first part-time job at a local store and will leave again soon for her evening shift at a small cleaning company. She works both jobs because her husband Ethan often claims the bills are too much responsibility for one man, even though he has a stable office job with regular hours. Grace doesn't complain. She never has. She simply takes on more. As she sorts the bills on the table, rent, utilities, overdue medical payments from her adoptive mother's last treatment, the audience clearly sees the emotional weight she carries. Each bill feels like another silent promise she made to keep everything together. She worked more hours than her body allowed because she believed that sacrificing for love made love stronger. From the living room, Ethan Harrison, 31, sharp features, impatient eyes, sits on the couch scrolling through his phone. The glow from his screen lights up his face. He doesn't look at Grace. He barely acknowledges her presence. This is Ethan, Grace's husband, a man who enjoys comfort, but not responsibility. A man whose affection has slowly disappeared, replaced by distance and arrogance. Grace calls out gently, "Dinner will be ready soon?" He doesn't respond. She tries again, a little louder. "Ethan?" He sighs loudly, not lifting his eyes from the screen. Yeah, whatever." Grace pauses, trying to hide the sting. She has gotten used to this tone, but it still hurts. Months ago, he used to greet her with kisses, jokes, or at least some warmth. But lately, he acts like she is interrupting something more important. As she sets the table, she attempts small talk, gentle, hopeful. "I was thinking, maybe we could save a little this month for something fun. Maybe take a weekend trip together?" Ethan's shoulders tense. He flinches. He locks his phone instantly, screen flipping face down on the couch. Grace doesn't miss that. He forces a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. "We'll see." He flinched every time she mentioned a future because he didn't plan for her to be in it. Grace sits quietly across from him and places his plate in front of him. A simple meal, nothing fancy, but made with love and effort. She watches him, hoping for a soft word, a thank you, anything. Instead, Ethan takes one look at the food, wrinkles his nose, and pushes the plate away. "I'm not hungry," he says coldly. "I grabbed something earlier." Grace lowers her eyes. She tries to hide her disappointment, whispering, "Oh, okay." He doesn't notice, or doesn't care. When he leaves the kitchen, Grace sits alone at the table. She pulls his untouched plate closer and quietly eats the now cooling food by herself. The scene lingers here, letting the audience feel her loneliness, the kind of loneliness that exists even when someone is sitting in the next room. She gave everything. He gave excuses. Grace collects the dishes and washes them slowly, the warm water soothing her shaking hands. The earlier phone calls resurface in her mind. That unknown number, the prickle in her chest. Something about it felt important, but she forces the thought aside. Her focus shifts back to Ethan, her marriage, her sacrifices, her hope that things might get better. In the living room, Ethan's phone buzzes. He snatches it up quickly, turning away so Grace won't see. But she hears the soft vibration. She notices the way he shields the screen with his hand, and when the light catches it just right, Grace glimpses the message preview. "When are we leaving?" The words hit her like ice. Ethan stares at the message for a long moment. Then he smiles. Not a warm smile, not a loving one. A secret smile, a satisfied smile, like someone who has already made a decision. Grace freezes in the doorway, unnoticed. Her heart sinks. Her hands go numb. Her world shifts without warning. And that message was the beginning of the truth she never imagined. Ethan types back quickly, hiding the phone from her view. Grace steps closer, desperate for even a small part of the truth. But Ethan stands up abruptly, blocking her path, and slips the phone into his pocket. He walks away with a soft whistle. Grace didn't know it yet, but the next message he sent would shatter everything. Grace wakes up to the loud sound of zippers ripping open. The noise slices through the quiet morning like an alarm. She jumps slightly, heart jolting, and rushes out of the bedroom. In the hallway, Ethan is aggressively stuffing clothes into 2 gym bags. Shirts, chargers, deodorant. He's throwing everything in without care. He looks tense, like a man in a hurry, like someone ready to run. Some people drift away slowly. Ethan didn't. He pulled himself out of their marriage one bag at a time. Grace stands there, frozen. "Ethan, what are you doing?" He doesn't even look up. "Packing?" "For what?" she asks, her voice cracking. "You haven't gone to the gym for weeks." Ethan finally lifts his head, annoyance flashing across his face. "It's just stuff." "Don't start." Grace swallows her fear. Her eyes drift to one of the bags. He's packing nicer shirts, cologne he never wears at home, and a pair of new sneakers she didn't even know he bought. She steps closer. "Why do you need all that?" Ethan zips the bag fast. "Work trip, I told you." But Grace knows he didn't, and he avoids her eyes when he lies. He always has. The scene softens into a slow, uneasy reflection. Grace walks into the kitchen trying to hold herself together. She makes coffee even though she doesn't want any. Her hands shake as she pours it. She's trying to breathe, trying to think, trying to understand why her own husband feels like a stranger in her house. She glances at the envelope of bills on the counter. Bills she stays up late working to pay. The weight of her sacrifices presses down harder now, heavier with every glance at Ethan's bags. Grace wasn't looking for proof, but the truth kept falling at her feet. As she tries to steady herself, she notices something sticking out from under Ethan's jacket draped over a chair. A crumpled receipt. Grace picks it up. 2 dinner entrees, 2 drinks, a reservation at a restaurant she has never been to. A time from a night Ethan told her he was working late. Her breath stops. She unfolds the second receipt. A hotel charge, 1 night, 2 guests. Her fingers go cold. She sits down, unable to hold her weight for a moment. Her mind floods with memories, every excuse, every late shift, every cold response. She can suddenly see the patterns so clearly it hurts. Ethan isn't drifting. He's leaving, and he's not leaving alone. New intensity hits as Ethan's voice travels from the hall. He is on the phone. His tone is low, comfortable, familiar, too familiar. Grace walks quietly to the doorway, standing just out of sight. She listens. "Yeah," Ethan says into the phone, sounding relaxed now. "I told her I'm working late again tonight." Grace covers her mouth, fighting a sob. "Don't worry," he continues. "She won't check." Her entire world tilts. She backs away, gripping the wall to stay standing. She wasn't prepared to hear it. No one ever is. Grace steps outside, needing air. Her chest feels tight, her vision blurry. She walks toward Ethan's car, desperate for anything that makes sense. But when she opens the passenger door to steady herself, something falls to the floor. A pair of sunglasses, women's style, bright, stylish, nothing she has ever worn. Not hers, never hers. She lifts them with trembling fingers, staring at them like they're evidence in a crime. In a way they are. Her voice breaks into a whisper. "Who is she?" Grace sinks into the car seat, trying to breathe. The world feels far away, muffled, blurred. Every sacrifice she made, every hour she worked, every lonely dinner, none of it mattered to Ethan. He already chose someone else. Suddenly, her phone vibrates in her pocket. She wipes her tears and pulls it out. Unknown number. Again. Her heart races. She thinks about ignoring it, but it continues ringing. Longer this time. More urgent. Grace hesitates. Everything in her life is falling apart all at once. Her marriage, her trust, her sense of safety. And now this number won't stop calling her. She stares at the screen, thumb hovering. She almost taps the voicemail icon when the front door opens and Ethan steps outside with his packed bags. Some messages wait for the right moment, and this one arrived exactly when her whole world was breaking. Grace, trembling, lowers the phone instead of pressing play as Ethan walks past the car, dragging his bags, and the voice she would soon hear would lead her to a truth even deeper than betrayal. Grace stands beside Ethan's car, her hands still clenched around her phone. Inside the house, the silence feels heavy, like everything is holding its breath. She finally gathers courage, unlocks her phone, and taps the voicemail notification from the unknown number. Her heart pounds against her ribs. Tears still blur her vision from everything she found. The receipts, the sunglasses, his lies. She braces herself, unsure if the voicemail is more bad news or something worse. A calm but serious voice begins to play. "Hello," the message says. "This is the Family Heritage Foundation. We need to verify urgent information regarding a recent DNA match connected to your adoption. Please call us back as soon as possible." Grace's breath catches. The phone nearly slips from her hand. The intensity pulls back, slowing into a heavy silence. Grace presses the phone to her chest, eyes staring blankly at the ground. She had expected the next heartbreak to come from Ethan, not from her past. Grace sits down on the front steps, trying to steady her breathing. She replays the voicemail again and again as if hearing it multiple times will somehow make it less frightening. "DNA match. Urgent. Your adoption." The words twist inside her like knots. To keep this from feeling random, the story naturally shifts into backstory. Grace's mind jumps back months earlier. A group of co-workers laughing during lunch break, someone holding a tiny ancestry kit, a colleague saying, "Come on, Grace, we're all doing it. It's fun." She bought a kit. She swabbed her cheek. She filled in her full name, phone number, and current address. She mailed it back, and after checking the online portal once or twice, never thought about it again. She never expected answers. She never expected anyone to be looking for her. A sudden wave of confusion falls over Grace. She stands, staring at her reflection in the car window. Her hands tremble. Could this be real? Could someone actually be looking for her? Her adoptive parents had always said she was found after a chaotic disaster. Papers scattered, names lost. Confusion everywhere. They claimed no relatives were ever found. Grace had believed that story her whole life. But this voicemail, it suggests something different. A warm breeze moves across her face, but she feels cold, like the world is shifting under her feet. She imagines questions she spent her whole life bearing. Who were her real parents? Why did no one come for her? Was she really alone in that disaster? Or was that just what she was told? They didn't just find her, they were searching for her. Grace's eyes widen. She hits play again. The tone of the caller wasn't casual. It wasn't promotional. It sounded like someone trying to deliver life-changing news, but carefully. Her pulse quickens. She feels something she hasn't felt in years. Fear, mixed with hope. The duality shakes her. Suddenly, a car engine grows louder in the driveway. Grace panics and shoves the phone into her pocket just as Ethan walks back toward the house. His face is red with irritation, clearly annoyed about something on his own phone. Grace wipes her eyes quickly, pretending she was just cleaning the doorframe. Ethan's jaw tightens. "Where are my chargers?" His voice is sharp, impatient. Grace points weakly toward the living room, her mind still tangled in the voicemail. Ethan doesn't notice her shaking hands. He doesn't notice her red eyes. He doesn't notice anything about her. He storms inside, grabs his chargers, and returns to the doorway with his bags. Grace stays frozen where she stands. "I'm leaving for a while," he says suddenly, voice cold. "I need space." He doesn't say where he's going. He doesn't ask if she's okay. He doesn't look at her long enough to see the fear on her face. He simply turns away like she's not his wife, like she's not even someone he recognizes anymore. Grace stares after him, feeling something inside her crack wide open. She remembers the hotel receipt, the message, the sunglasses, leaving for a while. With who? She grips her phone in her pocket, feeling its weight like a secret burning against her skin. Two truths now collide inside her. Her husband is walking out on her, and her past is suddenly calling her forward. The life she knew was closing its doors, and another one was waiting on the other side. Ethan throws his bags into the trunk without glancing back. The engine roars, he drives away. The house falls silent. Grace pulls out her phone and stares at the number that called her. For the first time in her life, she is terrified, not of losing Ethan, but of discovering who she really is. Grace's thumb hovers over the callback button, when suddenly her phone begins ringing again. Same number, same urgency, same fate knocking at the door. And this time, the voice on the other end wouldn't let her run from the truth. Grace's phone is still buzzing in her hand when the scene explodes with intensity. A loud honk blares from outside, sharp enough to make her jump. The sudden sound cuts straight through the ringing in her ear. She rushes to the front door, heart racing, still shaken from the voicemail and Ethan's cold announcement. Before she can speak, she sees him, Ethan, her husband of 4 years, standing at the entrance with 2 heavy suitcases at his feet. He's checking his watch, impatient, like someone late for a trip he's been planning for weeks. Another honk, this time followed by a female laugh, light and teasing. The sound hits Grace like a blow to the chest. He didn't even look back. Grace's voice trembles. "Where are you going?" Ethan doesn't hesitate, doesn't soften, doesn't even turn to face her fully. "Somewhere better," he says. Just those 2 words. Sharp, cruel, intentional. It stings more than any argument, any insult, any moment of distance he ever gave her. He isn't hiding it anymore. He doesn't care. Grace feels her knees weaken, but she forces herself to stand tall. "Ethan, what do you mean? What's happening? Who was that laughing?" He sighs loudly as if her questions are a chore. "Grace, I told you I need space. Don't make this harder." He grabs his luggage and steps outside without waiting for her response. The intensity slowly melts into a deep, heartbreaking reflection. Grace stands at the doorway, looking at the empty table behind her. Cold leftovers still sit on the plates. Her dinner, the one she made hoping he would eat with her. The food is untouched, the silverware abandoned mid-preparation, like their life together, paused and forgotten. She didn't lose him in one moment. She lost him piece by piece, long before this door closed. Grace walks back into the kitchen like she's moving through fog. She sits down, staring at the cold food, her hands trembling. Earlier today, she found hotel receipts, a pair of women's sunglasses in his car, messages from another woman. But hearing him say the words out loud, "somewhere better," makes everything real. She whispers to herself, "How long have you been leaving me?" Her voice breaks. Inside her chest, something tightens. Not just heartbreak, but revelation. She remembers the voicemail, the DNA match, the urgent tone, as if fate chose the exact moment her marriage fell apart to open a new door. But right now, Grace can't think about that. Her world is cracking too loudly. A gust of warm air enters the room as the front door swings slightly open again. Ethan must not have closed it properly. Grace rises slowly, walking toward the sound, each step heavier than the last. She reaches the doorway just as Ethan pulls open the passenger door of the waiting car. Grace hesitates, hiding behind the curtain. She shouldn't look. It will hurt, but she can't stop herself. She peers through the window. A woman sits inside the car, young, styled, confident. Everything Grace feels she hasn't been in a long time. The woman smiles wickedly and pulls Ethan toward her. Their silhouettes lean in close, then closer, until their lips meet. Grace's breath shatters. She feels the moment like a knife straight through her chest. And that was the moment her old life died. Grace pulls back from the window, pressing a hand over her mouth to hold in a sob. She backs away from the curtain, her body shaking uncontrollably. She staggers into the hallway and sinks to the floor, clutching her phone as though it might anchor her to something real. The phone screen lights up in her hand. The unknown number is still displayed, the missed call and voicemail waiting. As tears blur her vision, her gaze settles on it. The unknown number, the DNA match, the sense that something huge is waiting for her. Grace wipes her face, breathing unevenly. She whispers, "If he can leave, maybe I need to find out where I came from." The camera follows her trembling hand as she lifts the phone again, staring at the callback number with new weight. But before she can press anything, another notification slides across the top of her screen. It's from the email address she used for the ancestry kit. Subject line, "Urgent, confirm identity." Immediately, Grace blinks at it through her tears. Her husband is leaving her. Her past is calling her. Her entire world is splitting in two. Her finger hovers above the notification when a loud knock echoes suddenly from the front door. Grace startles. Someone is outside. Someone who isn't Ethan. And the person knocking wasn't here by accident. Nice. Let's finish the rest of the story the same way. Scenes 6 to 10, fixed for logic, A+ realism without shrinking your story or bloating it too much. And then I'll list the specific logic gaps I corrected for these scenes. Grace pulls open the front door so fast she nearly loses her balance. Her heart is pounding, her eyes still red from crying, and her hands tremble around her phone. She expects Ethan to have come back to yell at her, or the woman he left with, or some new disaster standing on her porch. But instead, a woman in a dark blazer stands there, holding a folder pressed tightly to her chest. The woman speaks calmly, professionally, too calm for Grace's chaotic world. "Grace Harrison?" Grace nods slowly, confused and frightened. "Yes, that's me. I'm Dr. Helen Ward," the woman explains. "Family Heritage Foundation." Her voice is steady, but her eyes are soft with sympathy. She looks like someone used to delivering life-changing news, and not always the pleasant kind. Grace's breath catches. The unknown number, the voicemail, the urgent email, it all connects in one terrifying moment. Dr. Helen continues, "We've been trying to reach you for several days. Your phone number and address were attached to your DNA submission. This is extremely important." Extreme intensity melts into slow, heavy reflection. Grace steps aside, letting Dr. Helen enter the quiet house. The room is still filled with the echo of Ethan's departure, suitcase marks on the floor, the faint smell of his cologne, the silence he left behind. Grace clutches her hands together. "My husband just left," she whispers, unable to hide her pain. Dr. Helen nods gently. "I'm sorry, but what I'm here to discuss will change everything you thought you knew about your past." Grace sits on the couch, fingers twisting nervously. Dr. Helen sets the folder on the coffee table. "Months ago," the representative begins, "you submitted a DNA test through a partnered ancestry service. That data entered our national match program. 2 weeks ago, your DNA triggered a high-priority alert." Grace's heartbeat pounds louder. "I didn't think anything would come from it," she admits quietly. "My adoptive parents always said my records were lost after some disaster." Dr. Helen opens the folder. "That disaster," she explains, "was a hospital fire 27 years ago. Several infants were evacuated across different facilities. Many files were damaged beyond repair." Grace's eyes widen. Dr. Helen slides out an old photograph. A wealthy-looking couple, Elegant clothing, tired eyes, holding hands outside a hospital. Behind them, smoke rises in the background. This couple, she says softly, lost their daughter that day in the chaos. Their names are Elizabeth and Michael Hale. Grace looks closer at the photo. The mother's eyes are swollen from crying. The father is shouting at hospital staff. They look broken. Dr. Helen continues. Several babies were mixed up in the evacuation. Some were taken to temporary shelters. Some were transferred without accurate paperwork. In the confusion, one baby girl was never reunited with her parents. Grace trembles. She feels like a child again, lost, confused, carried by strangers. Another photograph slides out. This time, a tiny baby bracelet. Blank nameplate. The exact bracelet Grace keeps in her wooden box. Her lips part in shock. That looks like mine. Yes, Dr. Helen nods. It was recovered during the evacuation. Your birth parents held on to this image as the only proof of what was lost. When your DNA entered the system, we cross-referenced it with old files. And with this bracelet. Grace covers her mouth. Tears fill her eyes. She wasn't lost. She was stolen by fate. Dr. Helen gently places another document in front of Grace. This is the DNA confirmation. You are their biological daughter. Grace's tears spill over. It feels unreal, like the ground beneath her has given way. One moment she lost her husband. Now she has found a family she never knew existed. She whispers, They've been looking for me? Dr. Helen exhales slowly, as if she has been waiting for this question. For 27 years, she answers. They never stopped. They kept updating their search requests. When technology improved, we linked old disaster records to new DNA submissions. That's how we found you? Grace shakes her head, overwhelmed. Why come here in person? Why now? Dr. Helen leans forward. Because your biological parents aren't just any family, Grace. The Hales are one of the wealthiest and most influential families in the country. Once we confirmed your match, they requested immediate contact. A private recognition gathering has been arranged for today. The public announcement will follow later, once you consent. Grace goes silent, barely breathing. A mix of grief, shock, and something new begins to rise inside her. Dr. Helen slides one final document across the table. This outlines the recognition process. This first meeting is private, just you and them. After that, if you agree, there will be a formal announcement, possibly within days. Grace blinks. When is the private meeting? Dr. Helen holds her gaze. In a few hours, she says gently. That's why we couldn't wait any longer. The word hits like lightning. Grace gasps as the camera closes in on her stunned face. The front door remains open behind them. Wind blows in, pushing the paper with her DNA confirmation across the table toward Grace's hands. Dr. Helen stands slowly. We need to leave soon, she says. They're already waiting. And the people waiting for her were about to give her a life Ethan never imagined. Grace steps out of the black car and freezes. Before her stands an enormous private estate, tall iron gates, sweeping driveways, manicured gardens. The kind of place she has only seen in magazines and passing conversations. Her heart races so fast she feels dizzy. Dr. Helen Ward, the representative from the foundation, places a gentle hand on Grace's shoulder. They're waiting inside. Grace's breath catches. They, her biological parents. The gates open with a deep metallic groan, like the sound of her old life finally breaking apart. The car drives through, and Grace stares wide-eyed as they approach the entrance. Two large doors swing open, revealing a man and a woman who look like they haven't slept in days or decades. The intensity softens, turning into something tender and overwhelming. The moment Grace steps out of the car, the woman runs toward her. No hesitation, no fear. Only raw emotion. This is Elizabeth Hale, her biological mother, a woman with kind eyes, trembling hands, and a heart that cracks open the second she sees Grace. Elizabeth stops right in front of her, studying her face with shaking fingers before finally whispering, "My baby, you're really here." Grace doesn't know how to respond. Her throat tightens. Her chest aches. She has never been held like this, not with this kind of desperate love. Her father, Michael Hale, follows behind, trying to stay composed. A tall man with silver hair, steady shoulders, and the eyes of someone who carried grief for too long. When he reaches Grace, his voice breaks. "I never stopped looking for you." Grace trembles. You searched for me." Their answer comes in the form of a soft nod and tears that fall freely. Inside the estate, Elizabeth leads her to a long hallway filled with framed photos, pictures of parties, charity events, birthdays, business milestones. Then she stops at a special section on the wall. The frames here hold photos of baby clothes, tiny toys, and empty cribs. Michael explains, "These were from the news back then. The fire at the hospital. Children moved everywhere. Paper records ruined. The worst chaos a parent could imagine." Dr. Helen adds gently, "Your bracelet image was preserved in one of those files. That's how your DNA finally matched the database." Grace reaches out and touches one of the empty crib photos. Her fingers tremble. She didn't gain wealth. She gained identity. Elizabeth takes Grace's hand. "We tried detectives. We searched shelters. We checked every hospital report. We put out rewards. Everything was hopeless until technology finally caught up." Grace's eyes fill with tears. Slowly, she begins to feel something shift inside her. Not just grief, not just shock, but a strange sense of being seen, as if the pieces of her life are finally sliding into the correct places. Elizabeth brings out a small wooden chest from a nearby cabinet. "These were yours," she says softly. Inside are childhood photos Grace has never seen. A picture of her crawling, one of her laughing in a tiny dress, another of her smiling up at Elizabeth, arms reaching. Grace presses a hand to her mouth. "I don't remember any of this," Elizabeth whispers, "but we never stopped remembering you." Grace closes her eyes. She feels warmth around her. Real warmth, not the hollow space Ethan left behind. Michael gently sits beside her. "Grace, now that you're home, we want to help you in any way. You don't have to carry suffering alone anymore. Not emotionally, not financially, not legally. Ever again." Grace hesitates, swallowing hard. Her mind flashes back to Ethan, loading bags into the car, kissing another woman, leaving her with cold leftovers and lies. Her hands curl slowly into fists. Michael watches her carefully, reading the storm behind her eyes. He asks quietly, "Do you need help with anything or anyone?" Grace's chest rises sharply. She finally whispers, "Yes." Her parents exchange a subtle, understanding look, one that says they already knew she would need strength to face what she left behind. Michael rises and signals someone from across the room. A man in a suit steps forward, clearly waiting for instructions. Grace stares, heart pounding, as the man introduces himself with a calm nod. And in that moment, Grace realized she wasn't facing her battles alone anymore. Grace sits across a long, polished table in a quiet study inside the Hale estate, her hands shaking as she empties everything from her purse, receipts, printouts, screenshots, her phone, even the women's sunglasses she found in Ethan's car. They scatter across the table like pieces of a broken life. Across from her sits Daniel Cole, a calm, sharp-eyed lawyer in his 40s. He is the man Michael signaled earlier, family legal counsel, trusted for years. Michael Hale stands behind Grace protectively, his presence steady and grounding. Daniel's role is clear. He is here to help her build a case, to gather truth, to turn her pain into strength. Grace looks overwhelmed, words stuck in her throat. She came here carrying heartbreak, but she was about to leave carrying power. The intensity softens into strategic quiet. Daniel opens a folder and speaks in a steady, reassuring tone. "Grace, everything you give me today helps us understand the full picture. Take your time." Grace nods, wiping her eyes. Her voice trembles. "I don't even know where to start." "Start with what hurt you most," Daniel says gently. Grace takes a breath and begins. She shows him the hotel receipt she found tucked under Ethan's jacket, the restaurant bill with 2 dinners and 2 drinks, the screenshots of Ethan's messages she took weeks ago when she first felt something was off but was too afraid to confront him, the sunglasses left in his car. Daniel picks up each item carefully, examining them with forensic focus. Michael lays a supportive hand on Grace's shoulder. Remember, he murmurs, you're not alone in this. Grace offers a faint, grateful smile. Daniel powers on his laptop. Let's go through everything one by one. Pain made her cry. Dignity made her plan. Grace opens her phone and scrolls to Ethan's messages. She hesitates when she reaches a specific thread, then shows it to Daniel. A text from Ethan to someone saved as Rena flashes across the screen. She'll never leave me. She needs me. Grace's breath hitches when she sees it again. Her chest tightens. Daniel's jaw tenses ever so slightly. This is important, he says. Keep going. Grace swipes again and reveals screenshots of Rena's public posts. Photos from the road, from fancy lunch places, from inside Ethan's car. In one photo, Grace recognizes the exact shirt Ethan packed earlier that morning. Daniel notes, this helps establish pattern and timing. Grace then opens her voicemail folder. She plays the message Ethan left a few weeks earlier. Working late, don't wait up. His tone is flat, familiar. She once believed every word. Now she knows on that night he was never at the office. Daniel nods. We can cross-check this with any location data you have. He opens one of the shared safety apps on her phone, the kind couples sometimes use to see each other's location in emergencies. Grace had installed it months ago at Ethan's request, but she never checked his side. Now the screen lights up with an old route from that night. House, hotel, restaurant, scenic point, Rena's apartment. Grace covers her mouth in shock. She can't breathe for a moment. Michael leans down. Grace, look at me. You are doing the right thing. Tears fall, but Grace nods. For the first time, she feels something stronger than heartbreak creeping in. Clarity. Daniel organizes the items into a neat, powerful file. Hotel logs, GPS routes, screenshots, receipts, sunglasses, voicemails. Each piece becomes a brick in the foundation of her revenge. Grace finally speaks, voice steady for the first time. He treated me like I was invisible, like my feelings didn't matter. Her eyes narrow slightly. But I'm done being invisible. Daniel gives a slow, approving nod. This is more than enough to start, he says. We'll file for divorce on grounds of adultery and emotional cruelty. We'll also make sure you are protected financially. Given your new legal status as the Hale's daughter, this process will be watched closely. That can work in your favor. He slides a thick folder across the table. Clean, official, terrifying. Grace, he says firmly, are you ready to begin? Grace looks at her father, who gives her the faintest nod of strength. She takes a deep breath. Yes, I'm ready. Daniel opens the folder. He places the first document in front of her and says only two chilling words. Sign here. Grace's hand hovers over the pen, her entire future about to shift. And as she signed the first page, she didn't know. The world outside was already preparing to witness everything. A few days later, Ethan sits in a busy diner booth with Rena, the mistress he left Grace for. They're laughing loudly, drawing attention, acting like two people who think the world belongs to them. Rena flips her hair and steals a fry from Ethan's plate. Do you think she figured it out yet? She asks teasingly. Ethan scoffs. Grace? She's too soft. She'll cry a little, then pretend nothing happened. She always does. She needs me. His arrogance fills the room like a bad smell, but just as he lifts his drink, the diner door swings open with force. A courier steps inside, tall and serious, wearing a company badge that reads Express Legal Delivery. Ethan barely notices him until the man stops right at their table. Ethan Harrison? The courier asks. Ethan straightens, confused. Yeah. The courier hands him a thick envelope, heavy, official, impossible to ignore. For you, he says. You've been formally served. Then he leaves without another word. The intensity softens just a little as the camera shifts to Ethan's confused face. He frowns and turns the envelope around. One bold line is printed across the front. Legal documents. Open immediately. Rena leans in. What is it? Ethan tears the envelope open carelessly, and suddenly his whole body stiffens. Inside are divorce papers, adultery evidence, financial claims, screenshots, receipts, GPS history, hotel logs, and a note. A single cold message written in Grace's calm handwriting. You left me for scraps. Enjoy the leftovers you chose. And it only got worse. Ethan's face drains of color. He flips through the documents, panic rising as he realizes exactly what this means. Everything is laid bare. The dates, the photos, the messages he sent Rena, every lie he ever told. People in the diner begin whispering. Phones come out. Someone zooms in with a camera. A teenager murmurs, "Isn't that the guy my feed is talking about?" Ethan looks around, horrified. Rena's smile fades. She reaches for the stack of papers, and her eyes widen with every page she turns. "Ethan," she whispers urgently, "why didn't you tell me you were married to her?" Ethan's confusion deepens. "What do you mean, her?" Rena unlocks her phone with shaking hands and shoves the screen in his face. On every screen in the diner, TVs, news notifications, social feeds, is the same headline. Billionaire Hale family announces reunion with long-lost daughter, Grace Hale. A large photo of Grace is displayed, fresh from a private recognition event turned public announcement, looking strong, elegant, and surrounded by her newly reunited family. Grace is no longer Grace Harrison in the caption. She's Grace Hale, sole heiress to the Hale fortune. Rena speaks slowly in disbelief. "You told me she had nothing. You told me she needed you." Ethan freezes. Every TV changes to the same breaking news broadcast. Every phone lights up with the same alert. Every person in the diner turns to look at him. Grace's father appears on screen, giving a short statement outside the estate gates. "We are grateful our daughter has finally come home. We will protect her with everything we have." The words ring loudly in Ethan's ears. One sentence matters most. "We will protect her." He swallows hard, suddenly understanding the full weight of what he has done. Not just cheating, but abandoning a woman who is now publicly known, incredibly powerful, and surrounded by influence he never imagined. Ethan didn't just betray a wife, he betrayed a woman the whole world now wanted to protect. Rena shifts away from him in the booth. Slowly, carefully, her eyes grow cold. People begin recording. Some laugh, some shake their heads, some whisper, "He's done." Ethan stares at Rena, desperate. "This doesn't change anything between us, right?" Rena pulls her hand out of his reach. "I didn't sign up for this," she says quietly, disgust in her voice. "You're about to be destroyed. Legally, financially, publicly. I'm not letting you drag me down with you." Ethan's eyes widen. "Rena, wait." But she grabs her purse, stands up, and slides out of the booth without looking back. Ethan calls her name, but she walks faster. The diner doors close behind her. He is alone, surrounded by the evidence of his own downfall, and captured on dozens of phones. He lowers his head onto the table, trembling. The divorce papers sit in front of him. Grace's calm note sits on top. And while Ethan faced the crowd's judgment, Grace was preparing for their final confrontation. Ethan slams his fists against the tall iron gates outside Grace's new residence. The Hale estate guarded by uniformed security, cameras, and glowing pathway lights. His voice cracks with panic. "Grace, please, let me talk to you." Security guards move in front of him, blocking his way. He tries to push past them, desperate, wild-eyed, covered in sweat. His hair is messy, his shirt untucked, and he looks nothing like the confident man who left her for another woman. Everything he took for granted had finally slipped out of his hands. Ethan shouts again, voice breaking, "I need to see her. She's my wife." But the guards don't move. They know who Grace is now. They know who her family is. They know Ethan has no place here. Then slowly, the estate doors open. The intensity softens, shifting into a heavy emotional stillness. Grace steps into view, no longer the timid woman Ethan abandoned. No longer eating leftovers alone. No longer begging for affection. She stands tall, dressed simply but elegantly, a soft glow behind her from the mansion lights. She is only a silhouette at first, unseen face, but unmistakable presence. Security steps aside, allowing Ethan one small path forward, and only because Grace allows it. Ethan drops to his knees the moment he sees her. He collapses like a tower, finally giving up its fight. "Grace, please," he chokes out. "We can fix this. We can start over. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was stupid." Grace watches him silently. No tears, no shaking hands, no pleading heart. Just calm, just dignity, just truth. She finally understood. He never destroyed her life. He freed her from it. Ethan crawls closer on his knees. Grace, please. I made a mistake. I was stupid. I didn't know who you really were. Grace lifts her chin. And that is the problem, she says, voice steady. You didn't care who I was. Ethan's eyes fill with tears. I'm begging you. I can change. I'll be better. Just don't leave me. Please. Grace steps forward just enough that he can see the outline of her face clearly. She looks down at him, not with anger, not with hate, but with a peaceful kind of strength. She speaks clearly. You abandoned me when I was nobody. Now that I know who I am, I don't need you. The words strike Ethan harder than anything he has ever experienced. Grace doesn't yell. She doesn't cry. She simply tells the truth. Behind her, her biological parents, Elizabeth and Michael, appear in the doorway, standing tall and proud. Their presence wraps around her like a shield she never had before. Ethan shakes his head desperately. Grace, please, I don't want to lose you. Grace answers quietly. You never had me. You only had the version of me who didn't know her worth. Security steps forward at her subtle nod. Ethan panics. No! Grace, please! Grace! But the guards gently take his arms and pull him back toward the gate. His voice grows weaker with every step. Grace turns away and walks toward the mansion, toward her new life, her new family, her new identity. At the entrance, she pauses only once, just long enough to look back over her shoulder. She doesn't look at Ethan. She looks past him, to the crowd gathering outside. Reporters have rushed forward from both sides of the street. Cameras flash in bursts of blinding white. Microphones wave in front of Ethan as security releases him outside the gate. Are you the husband who cheated on Grace Hale? Is it true she left you after becoming heir to the Hale fortune? Do you have anything to say about the divorce? Did you really abandon her for another woman? Ethan collapses onto his knees again, broken, alone, exposed, irrelevant. And that was the end of the man who mistook a queen for a burden and chose scraps over destiny. Final visual. Grace disappears behind the mansion doors as Ethan is left outside. Cameras flashing, reporters shouting, his world ruined by his own choices. And as those doors closed, another, brighter chapter of her life finally opened. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.